So we've been discussing a little bit about pitfalls or shortcomings that you saw a lot during the Ranger School experience, specifically with kind of the handing off of information from morning to afternoon planning versus execution. So talk me through one of the times that you had pretty much everything fall apart.
So Darby and Mountains, the leadership that plans the frag ord and does the patrol base in the morning will not execute that mission that they plan in the afternoon/evening. There will be a complete change in the squad leaders, platoon sergeant, and platoon leader. And the RIs typically don't give you much time to conduct that changeover. They might say like 15, 20 minutes. You have to have all the equipment redistroed to the new squads and new leadership, and then we got to get moving and go on our mission. So the new leadership for the afternoon often has really no clue what was planned from the morning.
So they were not involved in the planning process from the morning.
Unless they were like a team leader that morning and got to maybe see the terrain model. Almost never do you have time in the morning for people to actually come look at the terrain model and walk through what the plan is and see where, the support by fire and assault positions are going to be. So what ends up happening is the leadership on the mission in the afternoon basically has to go out and do their leader's recon and almost either remake the plan or make a whole new plan based on what they see, because they don't really get the luxury of having the information of what was planned earlier in the day.
That sounds like a clusterfuck.
It does end up being a clusterfuck. So like one example is I was not in leadership for either of these, but the leadership in the morning planned. They did their patrol base, planned the frag ord. They go through the whole react to contact, platoon attack, react to IDF, all that stuff, and then switch out. New leadership comes in, and what ends up happening is we walk a few hundred meters one way, and they're like, oh shit, wait, walk a few hundred meters back the other way. They're like, wait, never mind, now we're going this way. And so we finally figure out what way we're going.
Now, why was that?
Because it's such a clusterfuck of switching your equipment in the 15 minutes the RIs give you that you're just kind of like hoping that, the point man knows what he's doing and the squad leaders maybe have a general idea of where we're going. And it's kind of like, make sure we're not late. So just switch the equipment real quick. PL never really has time to figure out what's going on with the mission or where they are, because he was just Joe on the line earlier in the day. He never really got a brief on, what the route is for the day or where the ORP is going to be located. So he's basically just trying to figure out last minute, one quick look at a map. But eventually, they figure out where we're going, and we get to the ORP. And instead of being able to take the plan that was planned earlier in the day, kind of just go confirm that plan by doing the leader's recon. Basically, the PL has to take hours, to redo the leader's recon and kind of make their whole new plan, because they didn't get to see the plan from the morning, whether it had different phase lines or control measures that would have helped them plan, or they didn't get to see where the support by fire and assault locations would be.
Is there any way to know who the PL for the afternoon is going to be so they can be involved in the process in the morning?
No. The RIs would not give you that information.
So what's the point of spending all the time in the morning planning?
So when you get your look. Your look is the planning look. So you need to plan and do your best to get a go on that plan. And then that's part of where the miscommunication comes from, is you're not going to be in charge in the afternoon. So you're really not worried about the people in the afternoon. Not that you're screwing them over, but it's you got to focus on you and your squad leaders kind of getting your go. And you don't get that time to make sure everyone in the platoon completely understands the mission and that anyone could take over and go.
So how
this ended up this is why a lot of the times we could have had time to do the leader's recon and do the mission in the daylight, but because it becomes such a clusterfuck, maybe you get to do your leader's recon while there's daylight, and then it gets dark and now you're trying to do this ambush in the dark and it's a shit show.
Is it because of everybody throwing in their 2 cents and nobody agreeing on a plan? Is it because it's so intense and so detailed that there's not enough time?
I would say it mostly comes down to not having enough time. So I was a platoon sergeant for planning in the morning in Darby, and I felt super rushed because we had to set up the patrol base since like it didn't get set up the night before, which would be really helpful, but nobody ever sets the patrol base up the night before.
Why is that?
Everyone just wants to go to bed and eat their MRE.
Okay.
Because, it's like a half hour till you have to wake up. So it's like just eat your MRE and go to bed for 15 minutes. But so you're trying to set the patrol base up in the morning. You're trying to plan the op board, and like obviously it has to be really in depth. So that takes time. So things like leaving time for rehearsals on the terrain model, where squad leaders or team leaders could bring in, a team at a time and just walk through the plan real quick. Doesn't happen. You get stuck on things like ammo distribution, resupply, water resupply, all that stuff has to happen. And anyone who's not in charge is usually not like, or they're typically dragging ass, they're not really worried about moving as quickly as they can. So some of those things that would allow for the whole platoon to have a deeper understanding of the mission going forward would typically get, skipped over.
Now, if you knew that the ammo distribution and the resupply and all of those items were critical in affording you more time, are those tasks that could easily be delegated out and can be being done while the planning process is, or while you're bringing different squad leaders in, or?
That's exactly what should be happening. That's what should be happening.
Okay.
But people kind of get wrapped up, and this is what happened to me on my platoon sergeant look, and why I felt so rushed is I was definitely doing like too much myself and trying to control too much all at once. It's not a secret, the RIs will tell you, but like using your team leaders, even though they're non-graded positions, if people are going to volunteer for that, hopefully they're willing to like work and help you. But they should be the ones kind of discharging ammo and getting the water resupply done and setting up most of the patrol base. So if you're like the PL or the PSG and you're trying to control too much of like what's going on with some of those side tasks, that's why you're going to struggle on the op board, because it's not going to be in depth enough. If you focus too much on the op board, maybe that's in depth, but you never spot checked anything on the patrol base. Like there's going to be stuff messed up. So it's a balance you got to strike. Officers are probably worse at that part than like enlisted with experience being maybe a team leader or a squad leader, and they often, like I said for myself, tried to control too much of it, and just felt rushed trying to complete both at the same time. So go through, because you keep mentioning one PSG look where you were rushed and just felt overwhelmed. Mm-hmm.
You said that you should have done A, B, and C.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Which is easier. Hindsight's 20/20.
Yep.
Okay. Step us through exactly what happened with that look. What you did, specifically the rushes, all that jazz. And then afterwards, let's go back to that same. And if you could redo it now, based off of what you've learned and what your experiences have been.
Yep.
Okay. What would you have done different, and how, and what you think the overall impact would have been?
Yeah. So this was in Darby. So I got made the platoon sergeant at night when we had finished our CASEVAC. So we go into the patrol base, and basically you just set up in a general triangle, and then everyone kind of lays down, eats their MRE, and goes to bed for the next 30 minutes to an hour. We wake up the next morning, we do the Warno, which is really mostly the PL, do the quick Warno brief, and then after that it's like trying to set the patrol base up and make it look as neat as you can before the next RIs for the next day come in, because they're the ones that are going to be grading you on that patrol base and all that stuff. So trying to set the patrol base up, trying to plan. I'm responsible for paragraph 4 of the op board and all the medical stuff that goes with that. So we do our op board brief. We step off, react to contact, platoon attack, react to indirect fire, get pinpointed after that, and then that's when the RIs switch us out. So how it actually went, the Warno went fine. that's again the PL's job really. I'm as the platoon sergeant, I'm responsible for the security and the patrol base as a whole. So I'm going around trying to work with the squad leaders and set that patrol base up. And it was difficult. What should have been happening was I should have been generally centered in the middle of the patrol base and had like squad leaders and team leaders coming to me. I give them the information. They go back out, disseminate information, execute whatever task I gave them to, and then they come back. The RIs are going to beat it to death, but it's task, condition, standard, time hack. That's what they're going to say over and over and over. And it's so true. But I, in the frenzy, I didn't really follow that too well. So there were people all over the place kind of doing different things.
What didn't you follow about that?
Mostly the time hack.
Okay.
I would kind of give guidance, but it wouldn't be specific enough. So that's where kind of the standard and time hack comes in. It's like, I need you to do this and I need like this done, but you have to explain like the end state that you want it and the time that it needs to be done, being realistic, obviously. But if you don't do that, people are going to take, as much time as they want to get it done. So
hence human nature.
Yeah. So when the new RIs came in, first thing they do is walk around the patrol base. They ask a bunch of questions. They check your AT4 and Claymore positions. They look at your security plan. And patrol base was shit.
Now, is this happening at nighttime or daytime?
This is daytime.
Okay.
So, yeah, you wake up, the RIs come a few hours later.
Okay.
So, so they're not really there watching you set up the patrol base. So it's more so about the end state, but they're gonna expect it to be really good because you've been there for a few hours. So they're gonna tear it to shreds if it's not good.
Now, where would people write down information in order to be able to answer the RS questions?
Yeah, so by the time you get to Florida, everybody's kind of figured it out, but basically everyone should just have a notebook and a pen like out in front of them, and all the critical information that their team leader brings to them, they write down on that notebook on a piece of paper, and they have it there ready to give to the RIs, because there's no way you're going to memorize like all the passwords and all the grids and all the information, but they don't need you to have it memorized. You just need to be able to answer it. So like everyone should have their notebook and their pen like on standby, writing down the information their team leader gives so that they can answer the RIs.
Now, is that a what's the word? Is that like a template that you can create?
You could totally do that.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be necessarily, but I mean, the general information you're going to need. So it's going to be like where we are right now, where the objective is, what our mission is, challenge and password, the mission you're doing, and all that kind of stuff. So you could make a template and everyone could have it, but it's generally going to be the same information every day.
Did you have anybody that was not able to get that information when they got asked?
Yeah. So not only were there people that didn't have the information, and this really comes down to like, as the platoon sergeant, I should have been doing spot checks of things. But like there were claymores that were facing the wrong way, AT4s and positions that didn't like make sense.
Claymores facing the wrong way is pretty.
Yeah. Like if you don't go and like spot check things, then you should just expect them to almost like be done wrong. So,
but that's also why you trust others to do it, because
so that's where that balance comes in. It's like, give them the task, condition, standard, time hack, let them do that, and then at some point you have to take a few minutes and go and check it and make sure.
Because if a claymore's facing the wrong way, kind of the opposite effect happens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Which is not good.
Yep. So yeah, the patrol base got ripped apart by the RIs that morning. It was pretty bad.
So, with that being said, okay, if you had to go back and start from scratch and re-execute the entire task or whatever it is, what did you do? What would you have done different, and why?
So the first thing we did was we kind of just walk into the woods and set up in a triangle to look like a patrol base. take a few minutes at night. You don't have to like go through the whole process of setting up a patrol base, but take the time to at least make it big enough to be a legitimate patrol base, and get people in like somewhat decent positions. That way in the morning you don't have to like move people around a bunch, shift your whole patrol base, anything like that. You can start on the priorities of work almost immediately. If you're in a big enough patrol base.
I did have a guy a couple of years ago, I guess, that got a no-go on his PL look in Florida because his patrol base was not big enough, even though there's not any quote-unquote SOP for the size of the patrol base. So how do you disseminate between what's not big enough versus I'm sure there's something that's too big?
Yeah, a general guideline for the size during daylight hours is going to be like 75-ish meters between apexes on the patrol base. Up
so you're
to
saying
100
size
meters.
Matters?
Yeah, I guess
Damn
size
it.
does matter a little bit.
Damn it.
As long as you're close, it's all good. But, you know, you need spacing between the positions that people are at, where it's far enough apart that, you know, they're not all going to die when a grenade gets thrown in your patrol base, but that they can have interlocking sectors of fire out to 35 meters. So
you said 75 meters between?
That's like a general standard for like daylight hours in a patrol base. But yeah, like trying to set that up at night, if you can save yourself a little bit of time and just make it big enough at night and then let everyone do their MRE and go to sleep, that'll save you some time. The second thing that I would say is I did not like use team leaders well enough. There's like your 4 squad leaders and then the 8 team leaders. And when you're setting up a patrol base, the team leaders should really be doing most of the work, assigning sectors of fire, making sure people have cover and concealment, making sure people have all the information that's being disseminated. So as the platoon sergeant, I should have been in the middle, calling people into me. They go out, they come back to report on how they're doing. Instead, I was like up, walking around all over the place, trying to talk to different people one at a time. I shouldn't be having to say the same information like 5 different times to different groups of people. I should be situated where I can control things. People come to me, I give that information, they go out and execute that with the task condition standard time hacked. So, yeah, making the patrol base big enough at night that you save yourself some time in the day. Using your team leaders for setting up a patrol base, and then spot checks. Should have been doing spot checks to make sure the guns on the apexes are at the right angle off the line that they're covering. Make sure that the claymores are in a good spot. That, you know, like the wires and the claymore camouflage. Make sure the AT4s are in a spot where the backblast isn't going to smoke the whole platoon. Stuff like that.
Okay, cool.